You ready, Zuri?
Yeah. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Yo, we back. We back. We back. We here. Am I?
We over here in another universe.
Y'all
No
don't
cap.
understand. Like my webcam over here wilding. Like it look. We living in a MTV 1998 music video right now. Like TRL.
If y'all continue to follow us, y'all are going to see this intro soon of a glitch screen with all of us here. Just watch. 10 years later, you can come back to this episode and see the most famous intro. It's all from Tunji's webcam. Legendary.
Real talk.
I'm gonna have to avoid looking at the screen though, because I will have a seizure. So I'm just gonna. Tunji, you're here in spirit, brother. I hear you.
Okay, I got
That's all that matters.
Should I turn my video off? Because it's like, how y'all feeling?
I say just switch.
All right. I already switched.
Yeah,
It's both of them
already
acting
switched?
up.
Wow. Yeah, that's
both
FBI,
of them acting
definitely.
crazy. Yeah.
That's how you know you're dropping some real gems when the government got to tap in.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop my video for a minute so we can just talk. What's good?
And we're back. Last time they tried to stop me, now they're trying to stop Tunji. Next is gonna be Kamau.
Real talk.
You just gotta keep it pushing.
I am not gonna lie. One time I was on a bus back from like this small little beach town, and I seen this like kind of like smallish white dude, but dude was ripped as hell. It looked like he had been through like 3 wars. And I was like, bro, that's like a real life Jason Bourne, like out here in Mexico, stashed away in his little hideout. And whenever that he gets that call, he becomes an active asset and he's here to assassinate. And like, I'm dead serious. I thought about that. I really feel like, and we're getting a little conspiratorial to kick off this episode, but I feel like there is nowhere that you can go that if the government did not want to make a call, they can't come get you. Like, facts. Unless, like, I don't feel any less safe here in Mexico. Like, if I really started causing some trouble, they would come get me for sure.
For sure.
I don't even feel like that's a conspiracy. I just feel like that's facts. Like, you got the citizenship, my guy. You with us. Once you're American citizen, it's ride or die.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're somebody like, what's the brother that they made the movie about? He was the whistleblower for
Snowden.
Yeah, that was such a good movie. But like, unless you're somebody like him who really knows the inside track and know how to really, move in the world without being traced and or taken out. Yeah, if you're an average Joe, they kicking in your back door.
Yeah, that's always so hard to be too, being like trained to be able to disappear if you wanted to, go off the grid. That's hard. That's hard.
You guys romanticize about that, like going off the grid?
No, I don't.
Romanticize, no, but I would love to. It's so funny because the thoughts of me going off the grid kind of takes me back to childhood, and I feel like I would love to know what it feels like to not have a phone, to not even want to go online to see what's going on in the world. Because I feel like we know too much information from the social media and online aspect. I can Google anything right now. And I think, and I know if I was able to go off the grid safely and actually, I guess, be trained, for lack of a better word, I don't know what word to use, but just to survive efficiently, I would love that. I would love to know what it feels like to not have a care of what's going on in the world. I think my mind would be clearer, eat cleaner because I would have to go hunt for my own food, like stuff like that. I would love to tap into that, but that's a whole different world, so.
When you say that, I think about it 2 ways. Like, number one, not to get too deep out the gate, but We can't just Google anything. You can't Google what your dreams are. You can't Google what you should do with your life, right? So those like unique things that you actually have to live life to do, like Google can't help you with. And that's what going off the grid kind of like forces you to do, to step out into the world and find out about yourself. You have a world, all the world's information isn't going to tell you who you are. You're going to have to figure that out. It'll help you, give you a reference point, but I think that's the only thing about being off the grid that I feel like is beneficial. I have to put myself on punishment. Well, not punishment, but just discipline, like 9 to 5. Even if I don't work that time block, that's my no social media time. So I can't be on Instagram. I can't be on TikTok. I can't be on any of these things. And anytime I do open it up, you know, just reflex. You pick up your phone and all of a sudden you on Instagram. You're like, what's wrong with me? And I have to tell myself, like, respect yourself, clown. Like, have some self-respect. You said what you're gonna do, now do it. So I found that has helped me a tremendous amount. Just the fact that it's not an option in this time frame. So I'm constantly thinking, I'm constantly tapping into what's important to me and finding out more about myself. And it's hard. It's really hard, in fact.
Now, to piggyback off of this, I do romanticize being in silence or in a confined environment. And all I can do is think about my dreams and plan out my dreams. I do romanticize that. I create those environments wherever I am, right? So I remember my first apartment, I literally designated a spot within my apartment as my silent, space. And it was to go like just grind it out, the 6 to 10, how they say 9 to 5, then you have your 6 to 10. But I do romanticize. I went to this one area called Getaway House, right? This is not a promo, but hey, what's up, Getaway? I went to Getaway, and you're literally off the grid. You're in Sushis, Georgia, if I'm saying that correctly. And you're in this getaway, you're in this cabin, they call it Getaway. They give you a bonfire, they give you a wooden box to lock your phone away. Like you literally are off the grid. So I romanticize that part about it, where then when I come into the quote unquote real world again, I feel like I'm so much far advanced than everybody else, so that's the dope part of romanticizing it.
2 things. One, to go back real quick to what Tunji said about you can't Google how to live your life or how to, follow your dreams or how to, create the kind of life that you want. But Google can definitely be a distraction. Chat GPT, Instagram, all these really cool TikTok filters, all of that stuff can be a distraction. And I agree with you that you can't, it isn't a substitution for going within and finding yourself, but it is a very easy way to convince yourself or to legitimize, like, I got to stay up on what's going on. I got to know what's happening on Twitter, like what was talked about last night. What did I miss? What's happening in Russia, what's going on with this train wreck situation and all these train wrecks and hazardous stuff, UFOs. Like, there's just so much stuff. And these are all things that I'm paying attention to, which is why I dropped them. I'm checking this stuff every day, and it's like, I am invested more in that stuff than I am in what I got going on. Like, I'm so much more, it's so much more interesting because there's like updates and this is what's going on. And there's this and that. And it's just like, and then all you're doing is just thinking about it. You're like, oh, wow. Oh, damn. Oh, wow. And for me, it's interesting, like being here in Mexico, because I do feel detached, but I'm also still connected, but I don't feel like endangered by anything that's going on. So like I'm away. So it's almost like, in edutainment for me, where I'm like paying attention to everything that's going on, but it's not really for the sake of education. It's really just I'm entertained, but it's from the information. So I mean, that there's definitely that distraction piece that you can convince yourself that this is as equally valid as anything else that you got going on, or any other conversations that you need to have with yourself. This stuff is equally valid and or more interesting. The other thing I wanted to say was, you know, Zuri, you went on this thing talking about, and I don't know if I've ever shared this story with you guys, but I went on like a 10-day silent meditation retreat. I feel like I've talked about this, but maybe not. It was 10 days. You take a vow of noble silence. You don't open your mouth for 10 days. You don't have conversations with anybody that you're there. They confiscate your phone, and you're out in like there's like a compound, but it was easily one of the hardest things I've done in my life. You spend the entire day, I think 5 or 6 sessions meditating for an hour at a time. One, meditation just in general can be challenging. But 2, if you're doing like 6 to 8 hours a day, it is exhausting. You obviously have a lot of time on your hands, but I think productive meditation and productive like going within and penetrating your consciousness is not just letting your mind wander. It's about like being disciplined and focused on like doing the work, quote unquote, or air quotes. It's doing that work of maintaining like almost like a focus and an intention for that going inside. So I just wanted to bring those two things up. I think the latter piece is I too romanticize that. Like I too crave that, especially because I know how plugged in I can get. And right now I definitely need to be like weaned off of this Twitter's.
Well, unfortunately, we're about to dig back into your addiction because Zuri's about to give us something about the culture. So there's that.
Oh, definitely is. And this is a great segue because I stay on Twitter with all culture topics. So today we're going to hop into our first segment, which is Pivot into Purpose. And if this is your first time listening, this segment is called Pivot into Purpose because it's a way to invite the culture and what's happening in the culture into our brand of Pivot and Proceed. A lot of times you're going to hear us three tell our stories of how we pivoted and how we proceeded on to find our destiny and really dig within to find out who we are. But a lot of times it's important to also, hear and listen to stories of, culture, individuals in the culture that we might follow their success or relate to their success or relate to their story to move us closer to our own pivots and our own purpose. So today we're going to tap into this guy called Patrick Beverly, also known as Pat Bev. And he has a phenomenal story within pivoting. And one of his stories really attaches itself to our brand called Pivot and Proceed, right? So Patrick wasn't always in the NBA. He wasn't always on headlines. He wasn't always having these grand highlight tapes while playing in the NBA. He actually started playing overseas, but always had a goal and always knew that he always wanted to play in the NBA. So much he actually signed an NBA no clause, and he actually had to pay $1.4 million out of his own pocket while playing on an NBA team. If that's not discouraging, if that's not might be belittling while you're chasing your dream of being in the NBA, I don't know what is. But see, the thing about his story that really stuck out to me in a pivoting way was he had to sit down and really ask himself why he felt lost, right? As trying to pivot back into the NBA. And he looked at his mom while he was going through these troubling thoughts. And his mom looked at him and she said, "This your dream, right?" And in that moment, you could see Pat's mind just pivot in that 1 second. It's so beautiful and powerful how a pivot can only take seconds. It doesn't have to take days or weeks, where all you need is someone around you who loves you genuinely to get you closer to the mindset of what you need to prevail on, right? It's not easy to be paying out of your pocket $1.4 million while you're in the NBA when that's not the norm, when everyone else around you is accumulating $1.4 million. So to end this story off, Pat Bev's mom would be leaving out the door. They lived together. Well, Pat lived with his mom, and his mom would be leaving out in the morning to go do nails as her career, right? Pat Bev would be right behind her, going to NBA practice though, while
Yeah.
paying that $1.4 million. So I want to alley-oop this conversation to Kamau and Tunji to just give their take and let this story kind of fill them up and bring and see what they can bring to this conversation of within this story. What do you see? And especially thinking of the personality trait that a lot of outside, critics say about Pat Bev, that he might be, excuse my language, I've seen some people call him an asshole. Again, excuse my language. He's a dog out there on the court. But see, the thing is, if you tap into his pivoting story, you wouldn't even have known where he came from and what he had to build from to be able to be that dog on the court. So what do you all see in that story?
I see multiple things. Number one, I see a dope mom, right? Where you get to the point where you overseas, you're dreaming. I know this story too. He was overseas. He had just signed a contract. He kind of given up on the NBA dream. And he's like, we're just going to cook out here. I'm going to win these championships. I'm going to run up the bag. Then the NBA called. And the question is like, what becomes of a dream deferred? You just said this dream died. And now are you willing to pay 1.4 million or whatever it was to live your dream? Because now you literally have to pay everything you've paid so far. And now it's financial too. And then he talked to his mom about it and he's like, okay, we're going to do this. So he was blessed to have a mom that helped him bet on himself. Right? Some people don't have anybody in their life that says, I'm going to bet on you with you. Right? You want to do this? Let's bet on you together. That's a blessing to have. And I also look at all the years he put in to the point where his mom's like, no, I'm going to bet on you because you serious and I believe in you. And then to have that conversation, have to go to living in the house, your mom's still doing nails, and I know that bothered him. Right? There's nothing wrong with doing nails, but at a certain point, you just want your mom to be able to do it by choice. And at that point, he's in the NBA living his dream, the quote unquote millions of dollars, but he's not the one receiving them, he's paying them. And his mom is still having to do nails. So I align with this story, to make a long story short myself, because I was working in clinical research just last year, making like 6 figures, got fired. And then I had an idea of, am I still going to dig back into this job? Because I got bills to pay, debts for days, all these different things going on. And alignment just said, nah, move forward. You're a speaker, your holistic health company, Rhyme, like, nah, like all the doors open for me to move forward. Like God fired me. I said God fired me because I was supposed to sit down at that point in the year already, but I wasn't listening. And then I had that same conversation with my mom because I'm borrowing money for her to exist at this point. Once the job is gone, I only have so much severance, and then all of a sudden I'm leaning on her. So that was tough. So I really feel that story. And to be at the point where I'm at now, we're really 6-7 months, and then you start coming out of it. And then you start saying, okay, I can start sending you money now while I get myself together. But that leap of faith, months on end where the opportunity is not there. So I just feel that story that like people talk about and I also understand why he's that dog, right? Where he's like, I play different. You don't understand. I pay to play, right? I pay to play. It's a different mentality. So that arrogance looks like, nah, my mom's betting on me. So when I step into a room with a certain level of confidence, certain level of energy, like, nah, my mom's betting on me with me. And I got to move like it. So I felt it all the way around.
Yeah, I love the Patrick Beverley story. As a Lakers fan, he recently was a Laker, did a good service for us, recently got traded. But shout out to Patrick Beverley because I love the story. And I've only learned more about it just recently. For a long time, just as an average viewer of the NBA, you cast these personas onto these players just based on the antics and how they act and how they play. And so, my definition of who Patrick Beverley was very limited to this pest who is harassing every single point guard, shooting guard, you know, in the NBA with his ridiculous antics. But you know, when I've started to learn more about his story, you know, again, like Tunji said, this guy, you know, first of all, he was a hooper, like a hooper. Patrick Beverley can hoop, and especially I think when he was younger. Like anybody who, first of all, who gets into the NBA, like we all know that you can hoop, but like he was cold, ice cold as a high schooler. So anyway, boom, makes it to the Euro League. I don't know what he did in college, goes to the Euro, has a pretty good deal there, gets a 10-day contract opportunity. You're telling me that this no clause, $1.4 million, I have to pay to break out of this team that I just got settled with. I know my bag's guaranteed, and I got to pay $1.4 million for a 10-day contract. You know how unlikely it is to get signed from a 10-day contract in the NBA? If you pay attention to the NBA, you know they just be giving them out, you know, at least 4 or 5 times a season, and they don't be making it. And I have to pay $1.4 million just for that opportunity to be potentially cut. That's like paying to go to a job interview. Would you pay $1 million to go to a job interview if this was your dream? You know, if you knew that you could make what you could make on the other side of it, like ask yourself, would you pay $1 million? Craziness, absolute craziness to bet on yourself that big. And like, you got to respect that. You got to respect. And I've actually saw a related clip of Future has been circling on my Instagram, where he was talking about, you know, how much he invested in himself, you know, where he's paying DJs to play his music. He's going to the club and throwing thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to build up this persona and this character. You know, all of this goes into the craft, right? Like, it's all a part of it, whether we agree or disagree, you know, with how much money that a person spent. Everybody knows their own individual crafts. You know what's going to give you the best shot and what is it going to take. And I mean, you just got to respect the people who are willing to bet on themselves in all the ways that they know is going to give them a shot, despite what other people might think. People are going to think you're crazy for wanting to buy, you know, a $4,000 camera if you're a photographer. People are going to think you're crazy, you know, for taking a $10,000 art class if you want to be a sculptor. You know, only you're going to know how that investment is going to in turn help you in your career, or you know, how it could help you in your career. Patrick Beverley took a calculated risk. And like that, to me, I think a lot of times you hear stocks, you hear about, you know, real estate, you hear about cryptocurrency, you hear about all these investment vehicles, but a lot of people don't talk about you as being your primary investment. Homeboy invested into him like he was the investment vehicle. So it's a beautiful story. It's really, really impressive. And I think what's cool about, if you can get through something like that, like if you can bet on yourself in a big way. I mean, now Patrick Beverley is doing whatever the hell he wants. I mean, he's like setting himself up for a media career, you know, after basketball, where he has this pretty dope podcast. And it's just a different confidence in yourself, you know? And I think, like Tunji was saying, like, the way that I got here is different. Like, I really bet on myself. And I think you can stand poised and really look at any career lane, whether it's fashion, music, science. And if you're willing to bet on yourself that big with something that you've wanted in the past, I mean, like, how you do anything is how you do everything. You're going to keep that same energy for yourself.
No, that's facts. I love what both of you and gave to this segment with your own perspectives. And to close out this segment, I want to jump back in and close it out the right way, in my way for going forward into the next segment. So I want to piggyback off of what you said, Kamau. Paying to you asked the question, have you ever paid to go to an interview? Right? I have. Following my momentum, and actually going back to the last episode and what we talked about momentum, I can kind of piggyback back off that story as well. So to relate to Pat Bev's story from my own story, it's not in the 1.4 million range, but that's on the way. You dig? But for right now, we're going to talk about the price that I paid to play for now. So I left the construction engineering job about in 2020. And I lost a lot of momentum after I made that choice, which was my choice. And I forgave myself and moved forward. But the thing about losing momentum and having to pay to play again, God gonna teach you a lesson through it, right? I also made the choice at the time to exhaust all of my savings. I've never told this story before, but I exhausted all of my savings, 5 figures worth of savings, because I had this grand idea of leaving a job that was setting me up for my dream in the construction development industry to live off of my savings that I saved for 4 years. And then I just knew right after that I was going to be building everything in Atlanta. And then God was like, nah, because you didn't listen, I'm about to take you through some lessons, right? I'm glad I went through them now. But I'm saying all this to say, I DoorDashed for about, I'll say like 6 months. I DoorDashed to be able to park at this internship. And I know that sounds crazy, but I just knew that it was going to prevail me in a position that was going to be so far. The connections I've made in those 6 months at that time have prevailed me closer to God, have prevailed me, I mean, in the construction development industry so much, where I know I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. But I relate to Pat Bev's story so much because where I was working at the time, I had to pay like $20 a day to park. Now that might not sound like a lot to you, but someone who decided to leave a salary and didn't have any money coming in and exhausted all of my savings in a year or so, that was a lot. So I made the decision at the time to DoorDash to be able to work there. God willingly, throughout that time, I learned so many valuable lessons of what that means. Because one day that $20 is going to be 20 million. But I'm going to know the difference, and I'm going to know how to navigate through those times, what to do, what not to do, what to listen for, and what rooms I'm supposed to be in. So I just wanted to close out this segment knowing that even if your story isn't a 1.4 million, it's okay to pay. It's okay to pay to get where you know you're supposed to be, even if you might have left something a little too early and you had to forgive yourself and, you know, had to take a very, very steep cut in your salary or your pay. So I just wanted to close out that segment with that story, and hopefully that'll prevail the next person on to know that even if people around you are doing the norm, you think it's okay to get in your bag and be humble and do whatever you need to do to get to that next step again, even if you were already at the highest of the mountain.
Amen, Pastor Zuri.
Come on now. We here. All right. On to the next stop on this train. The name of this segment is called How Should I Proceed? And it is an opportunity where we bring our beloved fans and our guests and our listeners into the episode with us, and we go over situations where there's a fork in the road, and they're really asking themselves the question, how should I proceed? Excuse me. So from a listener, she lays a little context here, so I think this is pretty helpful. I struggle with indecision when it comes to forks in the road. Sometimes I have a hard time trusting myself. I'm very tribal. I like to consult others and ask what they think. I'm unhappy with my job as a flight attendant, and I want to leave the job. I'm thinking about pursuing my esthetician degree and going to work in a spa. However, I love to travel and I like the perks of the job. But I also love skincare and making people feel beautiful. Each path forward has pros and cons, and I can't decide. Am I thinking too small? Or not thinking in the right direction? How should I proceed? So there should be a figurative 60-second timer. I don't have my phone handy, so.
But okay, I'll start off. I'll say my idiom, my saying would be, "What's the worst that can happen?" So that's the idiom. Here's me explaining it. Doing a workshop later today, and I was just giving them, and Kamau said this earlier, calculated risk taking. You're gonna have to take risks, and what I do now is say, okay, pros and cons. Right, 3 pros for staying, 3 cons for staying, 3 pros for leaving, 3 cons for leaving, and you have 2 lists. And underneath both, you're gonna put the best possible scenario and the worst possible scenario. And then you're going to assume the worst possible scenario is going to happen first before the best possible one happens. Mm-hmm. Look at both columns and then say, which one do I want to live as my story? So now you know the pros and cons for both. You know what the worst possible scenario, and you're going to assume the worst possible thing is going to happen before the best possible thing happens. Look at both of those columns and then decide which one do I want to be my story. And I say pick that one.
The first word, not even a sentence, that popped in my head when you were telling that listener's story is the word assignment. You can have an assignment. It might not be your purpose, but wherever you are planted at that time, which she was planted as a flight attendant, that could have been her assignment to get her to her purpose. So even though you might be in an environment that you're not really liking that much, sometimes you have to sit and really listen and pick up the reason why you're planted where you're planted to prevail you on, right? And also what I thought about was networking. That was the second word that came into my mind. Even though you might hate that job or strongly dislike that job at the moment, a flight attendant, you meet a lot of people every day. Whether you're waiting on your next assignment, right? Here we go. Waiting on your next assignment of where you will be flying to and taking that next flight, or the individuals who are boarding that plane. Maybe someone who is sitting in that seat that you're serving has some beautiful skin. A compliment goes a long way, right? And you compliment that individual, you get their contact information. Now you're on assignment. You are using and you're listening to where you want to go, but you're using your environment and the garden that you're particularly planted in right now as a flight attendant, and you're using that to your advantage. So instead of saying, I hate this job, I can't wait to be an esthetician, use where God has you planted. One, to not disrespect him because he know what he's doing, right? So that's a respect. And also you're respecting yourself because you know where you want to go, even though if that's not right now, it might be next year. A whole lot can change in 365 days.
Facts.
But if you listen and you understand that, or the assignment could be to help a friend out, right? Who you befriend as a flight attendant, whatever your thing is. But you have to make sure that you understand your assignment as a flight attendant, even if it's outside of the job. Now, I'm speaking of outside of the job as well. Maybe you're there to help someone live on to see the next day, or talk some life into them, right? Or tell that one person that their skin is beautiful. You never know. It could be as simple as that. But to the listener who wrote this, you're going to know when it's time to move forward. But please, 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 whatever you do not leave the job until you know it's time to leave, right? Just like my story, the previous story I just told in the segment. If you leave too early, you might leave that assignment too early, and now that seed is crippled. Now your garden, your flowers aren't growing as vibrant as they are, and you'll lose that momentum going into your next assignment, into your purpose, right, of taking care of individual skin. So again, remember, assignment, know what that is as a flight attendant, and 2, network your butt off and come out with your first clients as an esthetician. Now you have both.
My idiom maxim saying to remember is when you only feel like you have 2 options or 2 roads to take, you should take the third. One of the questions that you asked that really stood out to me from the prompt is, am I thinking too small? I don't necessarily, I think when somebody asks this kind of question, there's usually an inclination there that they might not be considering something, that they're not thinking about something. And I know I personally struggle with this, where it's very easy to see these forks in the roads as binary, that it's like this way or that way, that I have to go left or that I have to go right. And what I loved about what Zuri said is you don't. You can go straight through the middle of both of them, if you want to, but it's just about how you're thinking about it. So I think you first got to give yourself permission to even and just open your eyes to see that there's more than 2 options in front of you, even though it feels like there's only 2. These 2 are very clear cut, and what might make it very binary for you is that you have that there's very strong feelings that are in either direction, right? Like if you go and pursue the esthetician and work at a spa, that is an entirely different set of feelings that are very distinct from if you decide to stay as a flight attendant. But if you're able to navigate and see between both and see your way out of it, and just really think and sit with your options beyond the immediate feelings, I think you'll be able to unlock something that feels a lot more freeing, allows you to be in flow state, and to ultimately find the thing that works for you.
It felt like 60 seconds all around to me. So yeah,
there it is.
Proverbial clock was cooked. Beautiful. Yeah, and what I really like about that segment is just the utility of it. Like, it's something that I don't know why I feel pulled to say, something that I wish I would have gotten. I don't even know. I don't even have a specific moment in my life that I'm thinking about this, but it's just, I feel like people are really gonna, like, that's gonna grow into something that people are really gonna be blessed by. Already, whoever this was is gonna be blessed by it. But going into that,
ultimately too, I just want to say is that, all of these are just stories, right? Like, these are just personal stories, but I think there is something that could be taken away from all of these, right? Like, whether you're a flight attendant or not, I know you know what it feels like to be at a job, be dissatisfied, and be ready to jump. All 3 of us do, for sure. Oh, show.
Thanks.
So, there's something to these stories. And as you're listening, try to find what appeals to you.
So, which leads us into favorite failures, and now I feel conflicted because I was gonna share a different one, but I'll stick to what I was gonna say. Favorite failures. This segment is all about failure, about when you really went through something and it was an L, and really digging into that emotion. That's why it's titled Favorite Failure, because now on the other side of it, it's a blessing. Like, oh yeah, like that's a W. I'm winning because of it. But you have to dig into the part where you weren't winning. You have to dig into the part where it was an L. And I'm gonna share my favorite failure. One of those, when I got booed on stage. And this is the first time I was, so one of my fraternity brothers, Omega Psi Phi, Fraternity Incorporated. You know what time it is. So let's set that to the side. Okay, now back to the story. So he gave me an opportunity to host a step show, really a march down in Las Vegas, thousands of people. I had never hosted a step show before where I'm the outright host. And you coming out in between acts and they just tell you to stall. I've done different things like in a cafe with like 100 people, 200 people, and these are people I know. So it's a different dynamic than you here, but also technically, I don't know, a Kevin Hart could be on this stage, Mike Epps could be on this stage, but it's you. And he's like, hey, bro, like, could you put together a reel of different things you've done? Send it to me. And if you can do it, like, let's rock. And you can get paid for it. I was like, say less. So I put it together. I sent it to him. We had the date. The date comes, and what makes it a failure is we talk about imposter syndrome. I had an opportunity to be myself, and that's what he trusted me to be. But because I felt like an imposter, I became one. I started trying to write jokes and turn into a comedian, right? When the only time I'm funny is when I'm naturally myself and just being me. So I ended up being an imposter. I went up on the stage what's the benefit about me is I have interpersonal intelligence. I know how to move with people. Like, how were people feeling? I got up on that stage and I disregarded the fact that people were waiting like an hour and a half to get in for the show. People are irritated. They had been drinking. I disregarded that completely. And I went up there, wanted to tell my 4-minute intro joke that took 4 minutes for the punchline to hit, right? And I started getting, hey, man, I'll tell you, the angriest black man I've ever seen in my life. Everybody's like, I'm going to say, gave drunk uncle vibes, just mugging, just angry. And I'll tell you, he started the crescendo of the booze and the start. He was like, hey, man, start the show. And I was about to, like, when a comedian gets to roast back, I paused and I started thinking, and before I could say anything, other people start chiming in like, yeah, start the show. Yeah, boo. As soon as I heard that first boo, I'm like, no, not I. I'm like, okay, we're going ahead and start the show. I was like, I legit on stage full of thousands of people. I was like, y'all got it. Bet. Starting the show now. I went through the judges and I slid. Like, no, sir. Right? So then that brought me back to reality. Like, just be yourself. And I was trying, but because I didn't have that idea of who I was on the back foot the entire time. I was battling being myself with what I had written down on paper. So it was WL. And why this is one of my favorite failures is when they talk about you never know when's going to be your last opportunity. I've spoken very, very many, many times since. I have not been able to host one event since. And it was kind of like one of those things where God is like, humble yourself, stay in your lane. Like, this is what I called for you to do. But number two, it's like a lesson of sometimes you don't get another opportunity. And that L still puts a fire in me, right? Like, this is possible. This is a reality for you, right? You can stand up on the stage, and when there's a price to be paid for not being yourself. And now every time I step on the stage, I step in front of people, I'm going to be me, whether it's win or lose. And now I keep finding success because I'm willing to be myself. So it's one of my favorite failures because that failure is still there. There's no redemption to it. I haven't gotten back on a stage and then told jokes and thousands of people like, yeah, no. Like, it's a story of be yourself every time, Tunji. Be the most blessed man alive. Be somebody that's about community. And every time I do that, I'm blessed because of it. So yeah, that's my favorite failure. Getting booed in Vegas.
Yeah, that booing could hurt. Man, this week my favorite failure definitely would have to be, decades long bruised relationship with one of my family members. Man, I see this as a favorite failure, and it's taken me, I'm 28, and it's taken me 28 years to see this as probably my number one favorite failure. So recently, again, I moved back home, right, into the home that I grew up in. what was that, 2 years ago. And it's taken me 2 years to figure out why God had me move back into the same city, to the same environment that I got sick in. A lot of times we have to be brought back to the environment where we've gotten sick so we can heal up, right? So we can take those remedies, right? To prevail on to where we are really supposed to be planted. And again, this bruised relationship with one of my family members is my favorite failure because I've learned grace. I've learned how to forgive, even though when I wanted to hate. And I mean a deep hate, really wanted to come out of me. And it did for a little while. But see, that hate didn't serve me. It made me step out of the DNA of who Zuri is. And that's no one that I wanted to be. That's no one that I ever want to be. So if it took me 28 years to realize this and to be put back in an environment that I tried, that I escaped, right? Oh man, that was my favorite thing to do, was run and escape from something that hurt me. I learned how to cope and I learned how to run. But sooner or later, my feet had to stop moving and I had to be planted back in an environment that I know I got sick in. Some of that taken from my own responsibility, right? Sometimes your coping mechanisms can make you even more sick. So to wrap this up, this is my favorite failure because what came out of it is knowing how to forgive and to create my own freedom. You cannot change anyone. You cannot change how they talk. You cannot change how they walk. You cannot change how they lie. Whatever the thing is that you just wish that you can control and change. And this is my favorite failure now because as I move on and create new friendships and bring in new family members, because I also believe that you can create your own family in this world of friends or whatever, in whatever way. I know now what to look for and what I don't want within relationships that I build. And that is wealth. Me redefining what wealth means to me, other than the world-like monetary wealth, I am finally there and I'm finally happy and at peace. And the fact that I can smile through this story, knowing, yeah, of course, I wish the relationship with this family member was all glitz and gold and flowers, but that's just not real, right? And also accepting someone for who they are and not wanting to change them, but forgiving them. Oh, it's my favorite. Like, I romanticize that now. Like, that's how much I stepped into it and leaned into it. And now on the other side, I'm ready to move forward, and move forward with love and move forward with continuing to be who I am.
Ooh. Yee.
This is a poetic episode. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Facts.
My favorite failure was actually just sparked by something Zuri had said in one of her previous stories where she was talking about just financial woes. And I had a similar experience where I guess I'll lead with the lesson here first. And the lesson is you don't really respect money until you don't have any. You don't. I started off in college and a little bit before that, but first year of college, I was working a job, and then I took a break from college and I was working two jobs. And from those two jobs, I was probably 19 years old, 20 years old. And just from a year and a half or whatever, I stacked up 10 racks. One of the biggest achievements, even of my young life to this day. I was really like disciplined. I was smart for a young for a young kid, I guess you could say. Like I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was like on top of my books and whatnot. But I stacked up this money, and I had a dream that I was gonna move to California and start a business. I spent all that shit, and not only did I spend it, but I quit my job and I didn't want to get another job. And money spends a lot faster than it saves. 10K seems like a lot of money, especially to a 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old. It seems like a lot of money. It spends pretty quickly, especially if you're not replenishing it. And going from 10K and then having to move back to my parents' house with, I think I came back with $500 for real. And oh man, like I struggled. My account went, it went as low as negative, straight up. I mean, there'd be weekends where I had $30. That's it in my account. And I was like, I got to make something shake with this. And it took years to kind of get back on my financial feet. And one of the moments that stands out really significantly is when I had an opportunity to invest in myself. It was a calculated risk opportunity, and I knew it was the one I wanted to take. And I had to take a credit card out for, I think, like $10,000. I think the whole thing was 15, and I had to take a loan out. And it took me a long time to pay back $10,000 worth of debt on a credit card. And I was just talking to somebody earlier this week, and I know there's a lot of people out there who are like, and I can say here in front of this camera with a smile on my face that I don't have credit card debt. But for years I had it, and it was so hard climbing out of that hole. I mean, it took moments to make that decision, and even though it was an intentional decision, it took moments to pay that 10K on this credit card, and it took years. It took like 3.5 years to pay this thing off. 3.5 years to pay that money off. And the amount of respect I have now is like, when you stack up some money, if you don't have like a way that you want to spend it, just don't. Like, unless you have a calculated risk, and I'm not trying to tell people how to spend their money, but from my own experience, me talking to younger me is like, just sit on it, because there will be an opportunity where it does become useful. But I think that was the most money I had seen at that time. And I had a dream, and I wanted to spend the money on what I thought was my dream. And I was like, me moving out to California to do this is going to materialize, and I'll be making racks and racks and racks, and it'll be all dandy. And I think hindsight, like, that's not how it works. Even if you do have a passion or a dream or something that you want to go after, be very careful about what you're labeling an investment. Be very careful about what you're labeling a calculated risk. Like, really plan all the way until okay, I'm going to start making some money again. Don't just invest in the idea and expect the idea to monetize itself somehow. It's not going to. And you don't respect it until you've been there and you've done that shit. And it's taken years to rebuild yourself back up because you jumped off that cliff before you had a parachute. And as an analogy we talked about.
Hey, this man's spitting. This man, ooh. Geez.
So that's my favorite failure, because it's a real life lesson where just because I had an idea and a passion, I thought it was an investment. It was an investment in terms of an experience, but it was not an investment in terms of, okay, putting this money in is likely going to lead to getting this money out. If you can't actually do that equation, then hold off. Hold off until the math is mathing.
Facts.
I learned very quickly that only passion cannot pay the bills at all. Yeah, and I really to piggyback on your story, Kamau, And I know you said that my story earlier kind of had your wheels turning, but I have to hop back in because what you said is it's so true. Like, you do not know how valuable your momentum is, right? And I say you have momentum because you saved up that 10 racks. You were reading those books. You were doing what you knew to do at that time, right? In my story, I exhausted my 401k, 30 racks, plus my personal savings. Plus my personal savings of the 10K. Mind you, I've never told anyone this because I used to be embarrassed, but now it is a learning lesson. It's a lesson to me and for anybody else. If you want to take out of that 401k because you decide to leave your job out of nowhere because you just knew your passion was going to take off, that's cool and that's cute, but don't do it. Don't do it. Zuri has done it. Don't do that. I have paid for it again and again. The alignment with your story, Kamau, is amazing. And this is why I love this podcast, because I start to see that we are not alone, right? Us sitting here talking to each other, just this world that we have created between the three of us and what we continue to build every day. Our stories align so well because we're just not alone, right? And that's why we're here doing this together. And the importance of listen, like both of our stories, like we just have to listen. Like, I swear, we do that and we just go slower, the calculated risk, and we think about it a little longer than what we did the first time. We're gonna be Gucci, but I bet you one thing, we'll never do it again. But at the time, you know why we won't do it again? We don't even know where we're about to go. So when I get there, I know exactly how to take care of the money that I'm blessed with. I know exactly how to take care of that perfect credit score. You feel me? So it's like, it's such a blessing. It's such a blessing. I had to hop in because I felt that. It's such a blessing. I've been there.
And to close favorite failures, may I just say, hey, Three's company, 401k blown, credit card debt ran up, reckless with it. We're like, nah, I believe in me, right? Like, I believe in me. Watch this. And then you still watching it just 4 months later. And you look at that money, you like, where did it go? It's gone, my G. It's gone, my G. So, nah, what they're saying is real. Yeah, you have a passion, but it's gonna take patience.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try and jump up the mountain, because when you fall down, hitting them rocks, they sharp. Take it one step at a time going up that mountain. Don't try and jump like from one ledge to another. So yeah, absolutely. Hey, man, I'm about to sit down and reflect on my life after this.
One more thing. You just said something else that got me going, Tunji. I know we're going to the next segment, but those rocks hurt when we fall. But I promise you, they bruise, and we see those bruises as we continue to move forward. To look down and look at those bruises and know not to do that again, not to go that way again, at least to continue to go through and forward. So if you bruise right now, whether it's credit card debt, money, emotionally, keep going. Those bruises gonna be there, but keep going. Those bruises are there. They're like love taps. Think of them that way. They're there for a reason, and we're going up regardless.
I'm a passionate person. I ain't gonna lie to you. The bruises, give me a couple years between when I had the bruise and where I'm at now. I forget I even had the bruise. I'm like, shit, who can't bet on themselves again? Yeah. Who can't go ahead and dump this money right back into the idea? Like, I am a passionate person. When I have an idea, I really believe in it with my soul. I'm ready to burn the ships. Like, I just believe. I'm a believer in myself, and I'm just telling y'all because I know y'all are like me too. Not my two co-hosts, but your listeners. I know you. I know that you're like this too, but be careful. Like, and I'm at the point now, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm at the point now where I said this before, but I pay for a coach, and a lot of this coach's job is just to say, like, is just to really vet my ideas before he lets me go and jump off that ledge, because emotions are, man, they're a real thing, and to me, passion is an emotion. It's some other stuff too, but passion is an emotion, and emotions can pull you to do things that maybe logically you haven't thought through all the way. And sometimes it's a good thing, right? Sometimes they can pull you into something that your fear, would have otherwise held you from doing. But you got to be careful with, it's not that you got to be careful, but you just got to be thorough when you're thinking about, listening to that pool and going with that pool. Like, you want to have it all make sense. You really want a path. You want a plan. You don't want to just get on the court, the field, the plane and just start spazzing, right? Like, you want to have a plan on how you're going to roll this out. And that takes time, and that takes holding down the fort and, maintaining, just keep building, keep that momentum. I know Zuri's been talking about that a lot in this new year, where, like, man, we got to respect it, pay homage to yourself, pay homage to the work that you've done, pay homage to where you are. The way that you do that is you move very calculated, you take your time, you're patient, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? Like, these empires, these things that we're trying to do, they take time. You got to lay these bricks, but be patient with it, and don't let that passion pull you in a direction that you feel, hindsight, you're going to look back and say, I could have used another 6 months. I could have used another year. It wouldn't have hurt me. It would have only propelled me. Yeah.
There it is. Favorite failures, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to transition smoothly into glows and grows. Glows and grows, and then a song for your glow and your grow. And I'll go ahead and jump in. My glow is the way I've been treating my body. My watchword for the year is over deliver. And to be able to have to give so many speeches and go this place and that place, I have to treat my body in a certain way where I'm not giving out energy that I don't have to give out. Like, I can't be preaching give from overflow and you're not able to give from overflow. But my glow is I've been doing right, but I'm in a certain pocket with my workouts and the way I eat and the way I've been treating my body. So I step into these arenas, these spaces, and people are asking me like, oh, I'm sure you need a break. You sure? And I honestly feel great. You know how sometimes you just like, no, I feel good. And you like, I'm about to go home and go to sleep. But I really have been feeling great because I've been doing the work beforehand. And my grow is, especially after this episode, the financial piece. I need to sit down and get these numbers right. And I've been doing it, but what's on my heart, my grow is I need to reread or re-listen to on Audible Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Because it's something that I skimmed way, way back in the day. But it's one of those things that in my mind, like you said the title, now in my mind I heard Rich Dad, Poor Tunji. Like, get your life together. Like, so I was like, get tight. Get tight. Like, your other people's blessings is tied up within your own. And that's financial too. And especially because the area I live in, that's the last thing. I like to live in areas where people's needs are apparent. And I was walking in a Kroger the other day and there was a mom like with a sign that said, I have 3 kids and I'm not able to work. Can you donate money? And I just thought to myself, the only impediment to you giving, like the story behind it, I don't even care. I'm looking at this little girl right here and she's pointing to the sign looking at me, right? And whether she was trained to do that or not, I just thought, I want to be so blessed that it's not even a second thought. I can throw a dub in there. I can throw whatever in there. And I know that it's not breaking me. Like, whether I'm being hustled or not, my conscience and my heart feels light. So, yeah, that's my glow. That's my grow. And the song for my glow and my grow, Moonlight Sonata. Moonlight Sonata by Ludwig von Beethoven.
Okay.
Yeah, just like you.
That boy, yeah.
I'm telling you, play it. And it's one of those, it's made for stillness. When you want to slow the day down, you don't necessarily want to go to sleep. You don't necessarily want to be on 100. We talk about going off the grid and kind of getting lost in your thoughts. This song is different. It's one of my, when I start off I have a day at the office playlist, and it's the top of the playlist. It's what sets the tone for the mood of let's get in the pocket.
Let's get in that pocket.
Moonlight Sonata.
Man, my grow and glow for this week would definitely have to be understanding whatever lesson and paying attention. It sounds really simple, but when you pay attention, you start to see patterns of maybe lessons that you need to learn over and over and over again until it just sticks to you. And for me, I'm a visual learner. So sometimes I have to do things over and over again for it to finally stick. Right. I'm also the type of learner where I have to do it to learn it. And I'm saying all that for a reason. Most of the time, my lessons are very repetitive until one day I just have this light bulb or aha moment. And that's been me for the past, I'll say 2 weeks, but especially this week. Different occurrences in different environments, which are parallel to each other, have been happening to me. And because I've been paying attention, it's like light is being shined on them, but I'm able to be present in the moment and able to come out on the other side and growing literally each and every day. And that's such a blessing and that's such a privilege to be able to grow every day. Because some people don't grow for whole years or decades. But right now, I'm in this pocket in my life where I have the privilege to grow every day, but I'm making a choice to pay attention. So my growing glow is paying attention. The soundtrack doesn't really relate this week. I've just been heavy on the old Chance acid rap for some reason.
Gotta love that.
I've just been vibing. Like I've really just been in a vibe mode. Going to the gym at 5 a.m, coming back, wanting to go to sleep, but knowing I need to go to work. Like I've just been in this mode where I just want to vibe and feel good. Because I know feelings again can be fleeting, but I'm leaning into just wanting to feel good and just turning it up to the max volume and just letting the music just do what it do. So grow and glow.
I'm gonna start with my grow. It's more sophisticated. The grow is, well, it's kind of twofold. One of the grows is to trust the investments that I have made. One of the things, because I'm like really trying to learn about investing now. I feel like that's the next level of my financial education. And one of the main things that they talk about with investing is like the emotional roller coaster that it can be, and really trusting the investments that you make and not selling when things don't feel good. We're not selling when things don't look good, or you're feeling pessimistic or you're discouraged. I'm not even talking about investments that are in stocks or stuff like that. Like I'm talking about the investments that I have made in my life, whether that was, a this or a that, or I'm here or I'm there, where I'm investing my energy. Those are the investments I'm talking about. The things that I'm giving myself to and that I've dedicated. It's trusting those, because right now nothing feels legitimate. Like if I could pull the plug on everything, I probably would. But it's trusting the investments that I've made. And like right now I'm in a space where I felt like I was when I was, 10 years ago, where I want to just take everything that I have and just go pursue something that makes me feel better, that makes me feel more alive. I think the temptation is the novelty when it comes to investments. You want the newest, the sexiest, the most entertaining, the fun thing, as opposed to the things that you've bet on. And I want to stay true to the things that I've bet on. So that's one grow. The other grow is to trust the process of like the things that make you feel good. Working out, eating clean, having fun. Like these things I think help you generate momentum. And I'm in a place where I don't really feel like I have any. I'm sludging through these days, getting up with no purpose. Like it's a space I'm in. It's a space. The glow is, I got a puppy. excited about that. I was not trying to get this puppy, but it was just one of those things where the universe was like, here. A neighbor situation happened. Dude came up with this puppy that looks like Chewbacca, very ugly, cute dog. But I now have him or her, so she's super cute. The other glow is, man, you can't see the video, but hey man, this puff with the fitted cap, man, come on now. This is such a fly look. I've always been like to have
that.
long hair and to have a fitted, man. I used to always like see me like, damn, that's cool. Too bad I'm not like, I'm not mixed enough to have those genetics to have the fire ass hair and well, hey, look, dreams really do happen. So I'm out here rocking it. Yeah. In terms of my music, I'll just say I feel like I haven't said this because I've been a little embarrassed about it for whatever reason. But I listen to deep house music, and I listen to like the deep house, what is it called? I think it's called Deep House Relax playlist on Spotify. And this is my work music. This is like what I lock into. And I feel like the reason I was embarrassed to say is because house music, house is house. You can make whatever assumptions you have with house or connections. But for me, I was just like, man, it doesn't have any, there's no words to it. Nobody's saying anything real. Nobody's dropping any bars. Nobody's like really leaving a message. But I don't think that's always the purpose of music. I think the purpose of music is just to help you find a feeling. And this deep house, relaxed music helps me find a focused, energized, but also relaxed music that I can just vibe out to and be really productive. So there it is.
There it is.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, it's always a pleasure. And if there are no closing statements from my wonderful co-hosts, if you haven't heard it already today, in the past 2 weeks at all whatsoever, know you are loved by us. And may your every pivot be followed by a proceed. Till next time, y'all, we love you.
Peace.